The hum of the space station at the edge of the known galaxies was a symphony of new beginnings. Colorful banners representing hundreds of civilizations fluttered in the artificial breeze, creating a kaleidoscope of hues against the metallic grays of the station. Humanity, the latest member of the Galactic Council, was hosting a grand celebration to mark their admission, and delegates from across the stars had gathered in unity. James navigated through the crowd with a practiced ease, his diplomat's badge gleaming under the station's lights. His eyes were alive with curiosity, taking in every new face and exotic attire he passed. Among the many aliens, his attention was drawn to a secluded corner where a figure stood apart from the jubilation. Mira, a slender figure with iridescent skin that shimmered with each shift of her gaze, watched the festivities. Her species, the Eloria, were known more for their scholarly pursuits than their social interactions. As James approached, he couldn't help but notice the way her eyes flickered with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Hello," James said, extending a hand, unsure if the gesture was customary for her people. "I'm James, from Earth. It's truly amazing to see so many different cultures together like this." Mira looked at his hand, then met his eyes, a slight smile forming. "I am Mira. This is quite overwhelming. We Eloria do not have such vibrant gatherings. Is this your first time at a celebration like this?" James asked, withdrawing his hand slowly, noting her hesitation. "Yes, it is," she admitted, her voice a soft chime over the dull roar of the crowd. "I am here to learn, though. Your species has made quite an impression on the council." James grinned. "Well, you've come to the right place for learning, and maybe a bit of fun. Have you tried any human food yet? There's a stand over there with some of the best Earth has to offer." Myra's smile widened, intrigued. "I would like that. Lead the way, James." As they walked towards the food stand, James pointed out various attractions and representatives from different planets. Mira listened intently, her gaze sweeping across the sights and sounds that she had only read about in her planet's archives. At the stand, James ordered 2 plates of what he described as a traditional dish from his hometown. "It's called a hamburger, quite popular back on Earth. Maybe a bit messy for a first-timer, though," he joked, handing her one. Taking the burger with both hands, Mira examined it curiously, then mimicked James in taking a bite. Her eyes widened in surprise. "It's very different, but good." James laughed, wiping some sauce from the corner of his mouth. "You handle it like a pro. Maybe later you could show me something from Eloria? A cultural exchange of sorts." "That would be interesting," Mira agreed, her initial reserve fading into a more comfortable demeanor. "I think I would like that very much." The pair continued to chat, sharing stories about their planets. James was particularly fascinated by Myra's descriptions of Eloria's floating libraries and their vast digital archives of knowledge. In turn, Mira was amused and intrigued by James's tales of human adventures and misadventures. As the celebration buzzed around them, a connection formed, 2 beings from different worlds, finding common ground amidst the stars. It was the beginning of something neither of them had anticipated, a journey that would show them the beauty of diversity and the potential of newfound friendship. Chapter 2: The Language of Music. After their initial meeting, James and Mira found themselves gravitating toward each other at various events on the space station. The next day, they decided to meet at one of the station's most anticipated events, a music festival celebrating sounds from across the galaxies. The venue was decked out with stages for performers of all species, surrounded by audiences eager to experience music both familiar and alien. James waited near the main stage, scanning the crowd until he spotted Mira approaching, her shimmering skin catching the light of the stage. He waved, and she navigated through the crowd to join him. "Hey, Mira, glad you could make it," James greeted her warmly. "This festival is a bit of a tradition here. Music from all corners of the universe, literally. What kind of music does your people enjoy?" Mira smiled, her eyes lighting up. "We have something called celestial harmonics. It's very ethereal. Our music uses frequencies that are said to align with the universe's energy." "That sounds fascinating," James replied. You'll have to show me sometime. Let's see if any of the music here comes close. They moved from stage to stage, each performer offering a different taste of their home world's culture. At one stage, a group from a planet covered in oceans played instruments that looked like shells, the sounds mimicking the rush and retreat of tides. Mira listened intently, her head tilted slightly as she absorbed the unfamiliar melodies. "Do you dance on Eloria?" James asked during a particularly lively set by a band from a fire-based planet, their music as fiery as their home. "Not like this," Mira laughed as she watched humans and other species moving rhythmically. "Our movements are more structured, choreographed for ceremonies, mostly. Want to give it a try?" James nudged her playfully. "No ceremonies needed here. Just move how the music makes you feel." Mira looked hesitant at first, then nodded. "Okay, show me." James took her hand and led her closer to the stage. He started with simple steps, moving to the beat of the drums. Mira watched his feet, then, slowly, began to mimic his movements. Her first steps were cautious, but as she got the hang of it, her movements became more fluid. "You're a natural," James encouraged, laughing as he spun her around. The music enveloped them, a rhythmic force that seemed to transcend language and species. Around them, the crowd cheered, enjoying the spectacle of a human and an alien dancing together. As the set ended, both were breathless and laughing. "That was exhilarating," Mira admitted, a flush of color on her cheeks. "I told you, music's a universal language," James said, still holding her hand. "It's about feeling more than understanding." They spent the rest of the festival exploring other music styles, each finding favorites in the other's reactions. As the final act took the stage, a famous human artist known for blending different galactic musical styles, James and Mira found a spot to sit and watch. "This is nice, isn't it? All these different beings, just enjoying the moment together," James mused as they watched the performance. "Yes, it's beautiful," Mira agreed. "I think I understand humans a little better now, through your music, and I hope to learn more about Eloria through you," James replied, their eyes meeting in mutual appreciation of the moment and each other's company. As the music swelled, so did the sense of connection between them, a melody of interstellar friendship that was only just beginning. Chapter 3: The Art of Communication. After their delightful experience at the music festival, James proposed they spend a day attending various cultural workshops and events around the station. This would give both a deeper insight into the myriad cultures interacting daily in this small hub of the galaxy. Mira agreed eagerly, curious to expand her knowledge beyond the archives of Eloria. Their first stop was a language workshop specifically designed for interspecies communication. The workshop was hosted by a renowned linguist from a planet where communication involved colors rather than sounds. James and Mira sat among a diverse group, each participant eager to learn. The linguist, a vibrant being named Rax, displayed a series of color patterns, explaining their meanings. "Now let's try an exercise. Turn to the person next to you and try to describe your home using any form of nonverbal communication you prefer," Rax instructed the group. James looked at Mira, his face thoughtful. "Okay, let's give this a shot. I'll go first." He began by miming the shape of Earth, using his arms to show the roundness and then pointing to his heart, trying to express his fond feelings for his home. Mira watched intently, then smiled as she caught on. She responded by sketching a series of soft, flowing lines in the air, representing the gentle, rolling landscapes of Eloria. "I think I get it," James laughed. "Your home is a lot more serene than mine, isn't it?" "Yes, much quieter," Mira nodded, her eyes twinkling with amusement. Encouraged by their success, they moved to a cultural expression session where participants were asked to share something unique about their traditions. James decided to demonstrate a popular human game, hoping the simplicity of rock, paper, scissors would amuse Mira. After explaining the rules, he played a few rounds with Mira, who found the concept fascinatingly random. "Eloria has nothing of the sort. Our games are usually more strategy-based, involving long-term planning," she explained as she gradually mastered the game and began to win some rounds. Their laughter attracted a small crowd, and soon the game turned into a mini-tournament with others joining in. Myra's strategic mind proved quite effective, much to the delight and surprise of the other participants. As the day progressed, they attended a lecture on universal history, given by a historian from a species known for their longevity and extensive archives. Here, Mira shone brightly, her knowledge of galactic history impressing James and the other attendees. During a break, James and Mira shared a meal at a nearby eatery, discussing what they had learned. Mira was particularly touched by the various ways species communicated their histories and values. James, today was incredibly enriching. I've learned so much about your people and others just by playing games and sharing stories, Mira said, her voice filled with genuine appreciation. I'm glad, James replied, smiling warmly. It's one thing to read about other cultures, but it's another to experience them like this. Plus, it's a lot more fun to learn together. As they returned to the workshop area, they passed by an art display depicting various scenes of galactic peace and cooperation. Pausing to admire the artwork, they reflected on their day. This is what the station is all about, isn't it? Mira mused. Bringing everyone together, sharing and learning in peace. Exactly, James agreed. And I think we're doing pretty good at that ourselves. The day ended with them planning to visit a virtual reality museum the next day, eager to continue their exploration of each other's cultures. As they said goodbye, the connection between them had clearly deepened, a testament to the power of shared experiences and the universal desire for understanding. Chapter 4. A Stroll Through the Stars. The virtual reality museum on the space station was a marvel of technology, showcasing environments from countless planets and historical events in stunning realism. James and Mira had decided to explore it together, continuing their journey of cultural and personal discovery. As they entered the museum, James selected a program called Walks Through the Galaxy, which promised an immersive experience of various celestial phenomena and landscapes. Mira, intrigued by the possibility of walking through simulations of places she had only read about, agreed enthusiastically. The first environment loaded, and they found themselves standing on a virtual recreation of a moon orbiting a giant gas planet. The ground beneath their feet shimmered with a light dusting of cosmic snow, and above them, the massive planet loomed, bands of color swirling slowly in its thick atmosphere. Wow, this is incredible, Mira whispered, her voice full of awe as she looked around. It really is, James agreed, equally captivated. He reached out to show her the fine detail of the simulation, pointing to a distant mountain range that seemed to glow with an inner light. Each of these simulations is based on real data collected from explorations and surveys. It's as close as we can get to actually being there. As they walked through different simulations, from the fiery rivers of a volcanic planet to the serene fields of a world covered in bioluminescent plants, their conversation flowed easily. They discussed not only the physical aspects of the locations but also delved into deeper topics like the potential for life and the philosophical implications of such diverse ecosystems. At one point, they entered a simulation of an ancient civilization's first successful spaceflight. Around them, the crowd of virtual spectators cheered as a primitive rocket ship took off towards the stars. This is a historic moment for many species, Mira noted, watching the rocket ascend. The first step into a larger universe. James nodded, linking the event to human history. It reminds me of watching old footage of Earth's early spaceflights. There's something universally moving about the drive to explore the unknown. As they exited the simulation, they found themselves in a quieter section of the museum, designed to resemble an observatory overlooking a panoramic view of the galaxy. Here, they could manipulate the view to show different parts of the galaxy, zooming in on interesting nebulae or star clusters. Sitting at one of the viewing stations, James manipulated the controls to bring up a view of the Milky Way, pointing out Earth's sun as a tiny speck among billions. Mira leaned in, fascinated by the scale. It makes one feel quite small, doesn't it? She mused, her tone reflective. It does. But it also makes me appreciate these moments more, James replied, turning to meet her gaze. Sharing this, it's special. Mira smiled, a gentle expression that spoke volumes. Yes, it is special. I never thought I'd experience anything like this. They spent a while at the observatory, talking softly about hopes for the future, both personal and universal. James shared his dreams of further exploration, of maybe one day visiting Myra's home planet. Mira, in turn, expressed a newfound excitement about the possibilities outside her scholarly pursuits, inspired by their experiences together. As the museum began to announce its closing, they reluctantly prepared to leave, their minds full of new ideas and their hearts a bit lighter. Today was amazing, James. Thank you for this, Mira said as they walked toward the exit. Thank you, Mira, for being open to all of this, James responded, feeling a profound connection to his new friend. Let's keep exploring, okay? Let's, she agreed, her hand finding his as they stepped out into the station, their journey together far from over. Chapter 5: The Festival of Lights. The Festival of Lights was one of the most anticipated events on the space station, marking the convergence of many civilizations in a celebration of light and unity. Each culture showcased its traditional forms of light celebration, from luminescent parades to holographic fireworks. James had been looking forward to introducing Mira to this festival since their first meeting. As they approached the main plaza where the festival was in full swing, James pointed towards a group of performers from a planet known for their intricate light dances. These guys are from Helios 4. They use light in their dances much like how you described Eloria's visual language, he explained. Myra's eyes lit up with curiosity. It seems every culture has its unique way of embracing light. In Eloria, we use it to express emotions and tell stories. I am eager to see how others use it. They made their way through the crowd, stopping to admire a spectacular display where dancers used illuminated costumes to create a story of creation and evolution in their world. The narrative unfolded through the dancers' movements and the changing patterns of light, drawing gasps and applause from the audience. This is incredible, James, Mira remarked, thoroughly impressed. The way they use light to enhance their storytelling is just fascinating. James smiled, enjoying her enthusiasm. I thought you might like this. But wait until you see the Luminara procession. It's coming up soon. As they waited for the procession to start, James and Mira shared a local delicacy that glowed faintly when chewed, adding to the light-themed festivities. They laughed as each bite made their mouths light up, adding an extra sparkle to their conversation. Soon, the Luminara procession began, with groups from different planets walking through the plaza, each carrying a unique source of light. Some carried glowing orbs that floated around them, while others wore suits covered in tiny lights that responded to the music playing throughout the area. When the procession ended, Mira turned to James with an excited expression. Would you like to join in the Eloria light dance? I would love to show you. James was delighted by her offer. I'd love to learn, Mira. Lead the way. They found a quieter spot where Mira could teach him the basics of the Eloria light dance. She instructed him on how to use a small handheld device that projected light in patterns according to their movements. Each pattern has a meaning, and when we dance, we are actually having a conversation through light, Mira explained as she demonstrated a simple wave pattern that created a ripple of blue and green lights. James followed her movements, initially clumsy but gradually getting the hang of it. As they danced, Mira adjusted his hand positions, her touches gentle and encouraging. Under the starry simulated sky of the station, surrounded by the soft glow of their light patterns, they moved in harmony, their dance a silent dialogue of light and shadow. You're a quick learner, James, Mira complimented. As they ended their dance with a swirl of vibrant lights that slowly faded, catching his breath, James grinned. I had a great teacher. Plus, it felt like we were creating our own little universe of light. As the festival wound down, they continued to explore other activities, participating in light-based games and enjoying conversations with other festival-goers who were intrigued by their light dance. The evening ended with a grand finale of holographic fireworks that lit up the entire station, reflecting in Myra's wide, awe-filled eyes. James watched her, his heart full, grateful for the shared moments and the growing bond between them. This was a magical night, James, Mira said as they walked back to the station's main area, her voice soft and content. It was, wasn't it? James agreed. I'm glad we got to experience it together. As the lights dimmed and the crowd dispersed, they lingered for a moment, not quite ready to end the night, their connection illuminated by the festival's lingering glow. Chapter 6. Moments of Silence. After the dazzling excitement of the Festival of Lights, James suggested a quieter evening for their next outing. He had heard about a newly installed observatory module on the station, offering a simulated experience of standing on an uninhabited moon overlooking the galaxy. Mira, always keen to explore new perspectives, readily agreed. They arrived at the observatory just as the artificial sun was setting, casting long shadows and bathing the room in a gentle twilight. The observatory was designed to give visitors a panoramic view of the cosmos, with stars twinkling in clear, dark skies that won bright lights of the festival. James nodded, standing beside her at the railing. Sometimes, it's nice to just step back and enjoy the quiet. It lets you appreciate the smaller details. They spent some time in silence, watching as the simulation showed a comet passing lazily by, its tail glittering with ice and dust. James pointed out different celestial phenomena, from nebulae to distant galaxies, each with their own stories and mysteries. As they walked around the observatory, Mira paused in front of a display showing the life cycle of stars. It's fascinating how stars are born, live, and then die, only to contribute to the creation of new stars. It's a beautiful cycle. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? James mused. We're all just a small part of something much bigger. Mira turned to him, her expression thoughtful. Yet, even in such vastness, here we are, finding friendship. It makes me think that perhaps no connection is too small or too fleeting. I couldn't agree more, James said, meeting her gaze. The connection they felt was palpable, a quiet understanding that had grown between them. Feeling a shift in the moment, James took a gentle step closer. Mira, I've really enjoyed all the time we've spent together. I feel like I've learned so much from you. Mira's smile was soft and warm. And I from you, James. I never expected to find such a human connection. Their conversation drifted to their respective dreams and hopes, more personal and profound than they had discussed before. As they shared, they found themselves drawn closer, the gap between them closing naturally. Finally, James took a deep breath and did something he had been considering for a while. He reached out, taking her hand in his. The touch was electric, sending a wave of energy through them both. Mira did not pull away. Instead, she squeezed his hand gently, acknowledging the gesture with a nod. May I? James asked softly, leaning in slightly. Mira's eyes sparkled with emotion, and she nodded again. Their first kiss was a gentle meeting of lips, a moment that seemed to stop time as the stars continued their dance around them. It was a kiss of mutual respect, deep connection, and a burgeoning love. As they pulled away, the observatory felt even quieter than before, the vastness of space around them echoing the depth of the moment they had shared. I'm glad we came here tonight, Mira said, her voice a whisper. Me too, James replied, his hand still holding hers. This feels like just the beginning, doesn't it? It does, Mira agreed, her gaze lingering on his, filled with anticipation of what was to come. They spent the rest of the evening talking softly, planning future adventures together, both on the station and perhaps, one day, beyond. As the observatory began to close, they left hand in hand, their hearts light and hopeful, their spirits as intertwined as the constellations above. Chapter 7. Echoes of the Past. After their quiet evening in the observatory, James and Mira grew more comfortable sharing personal stories. It was during one of their regular meetings that Mira invited James to her quarters. There are things about my home I'd like to show you, she had said, her voice tinged with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. James, intrigued, gladly accepted the invitation. Mira's quarters were on one of the quieter decks of the station, far from the bustling main thoroughfares. When James stepped inside, he was struck by how different it felt from his own space. The room was softly illuminated by glowing patterns on the walls that shifted slowly, creating a calming, almost hypnotic effect. Intricate artifacts, clearly of Elorian origin, were carefully arranged on shelves, each one seemingly telling its own story. The air carried a faint, sweet scent, reminiscent of flowers blooming under a warm sun. "This is incredible," James said, turning slowly to take it all in. "It's so serene." Mira smiled, her cheeks faintly flushed. "I wanted my quarters to remind me of home. Most of these pieces are traditional Elorian creations. My parents sent them when I joined the station." James approached a low table covered with small crystalline sculptures. "These are beautiful. Do they have a special meaning?" "Yes," Mira replied, picking up a small, star-shaped crystal. "Each one represents an important event or memory. This one, for example, commemorates my coming-of-age ceremony. It's a very significant moment for us." As she spoke, James noticed the way her fingers traced the crystal's edges, as if it held not just a memory, but a piece of her soul. "It must have been an amazing day," he said. "It was," she said softly. "But it's also bittersweet. Leaving Eloria was difficult, even though I knew it was the right choice. Being here, among so many different species, has opened my eyes to how vast the universe really is. Still, there are times I miss the familiarity of home." James nodded, his voice gentle. "I get that. I felt the same way when I first left Earth. Even with all the excitement of new discoveries, there's always a part of me that misses the simple things, like walking through the park near my family's house, or hearing the sound of rain." Myra's eyes softened. "I think that's something we all share, no matter where we come from." James settled into one of the low chairs, and Mira joined him, holding another crystalline sculpture. "This one," she began, "represents the first time I saw the Great Star Veil. It's a massive nebula visible from Eloria's northern hemisphere. The colors, the patterns, it's unlike anything else." "You'll have to take me there someday," James said, smiling. "I'd love to see it through your eyes." Myra's gaze met his, and for a moment, the room fell silent except for the faint hum of the station's systems. "I would like that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Feeling the moment deepen, James reached out, gently brushing his fingers against hers. Mira didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hand over, letting their palms rest together. It was a simple touch, yet it spoke volumes. James glanced at the patterns on the walls, now shifting into hues of soft blue and green. "Do those lights change on their own?" he asked, keeping his tone light. Mira smiled, clearly aware of his attempt to ease the tension. "I set them to react to sound and motion. It's a little piece of Eloria that I can carry with me." "That's amazing," James said, "and it makes this place feel so alive." They continued to talk late into the evening, sharing more personal stories. Mira described the long, quiet nights of Eloria and the endless fields of lightweave flowers that glowed softly under their twin moons. James told her about his first time visiting another planet and how overwhelmed he'd felt, only to find comfort in a simple gesture of kindness from a stranger. As the night wore on, their closeness grew. James reached out again, this time brushing a strand of Myra's hair back behind her ear. She leaned into the gesture, her shimmering skin warming under his touch. "Mira," he said softly, "thank you for sharing this with me. It means a lot." "It means a lot to me too, James," she replied, her voice steady. "I didn't think I'd ever find this kind of connection so far from home." They sat quietly for a moment, hands still intertwined. The glow of the lights on the walls seemed to reflect the warmth between them, a subtle, ever-changing pattern that echoed the growing bond they shared. By the time James left, it was clear that something important had shifted between them. They were no longer just two individuals from different worlds. They were two beings who had found something meaningful in each other's presence. Chapter 8: Unity in Diversity. As the Galactic Council Summit reached its grand finale, the station's main hall came alive with activity. Representatives from countless civilizations gathered to witness the closing ceremony, a celebration of the progress made and the connections forged. James and Mira, now well-known figures among the station's residents, had been asked to join the event as symbolic participants. Mira adjusted the draping fabric of her Elorian ceremonial attire, its intricate patterns shifting gently in the light. James, wearing a sleek human formal suit, stood beside her, glancing around at the gathered crowd. "Nervous?" he asked. Mira offered a faint smile. "A little. It's not every day I stand before a crowd like this." "You'll do great," James said encouragingly. "Just speak from the heart. They'll appreciate what you have to say." The event began with speeches from prominent delegates. Each spoke of their culture's achievements, their hopes for the future, and the importance of cooperation among species. As the final speaker concluded, the Master of Ceremonies called upon James and Mira to take the stage. James led the way, Mira following closely. The hall fell silent as they approached the podium. James spoke first. "Ladies and gentlemen, and all others present, it's an honor to stand here today alongside my friend Mira. This summit isn't just about politics or trade, it's about the relationships we build. Mira and I come from two very different worlds. Yet through simple conversations, shared experiences, and a willingness to understand each other, we've found common ground." He paused, glancing at Mira. She stepped forward, her voice clear despite her earlier nerves. "For many of us, stepping outside our own cultures is difficult. We hold tightly to what we know, what feels safe. But what I've learned from James and from many of you is that there is a beauty in the unfamiliar. By opening ourselves to new perspectives, we not only learn about others, but we also discover new truths about ourselves." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. James continued, "This summit is a reminder that we're all part of something greater. Our diversity isn't a barrier. It's our greatest strength. Mira and I hope our friendship can inspire others to reach out, to listen, and to connect." With a final bow, they stepped back, and the hall erupted into applause. The energy in the room was palpable, the audience moved by their words and the visible bond they shared. Later, as the festivities continued, James and Mira found a quiet corner to reflect. The soft hum of conversation and the gentle clinking of glasses filled the air around them. "You were amazing," James said, leaning against the wall and looking at Mira with admiration. "I could tell people were really listening to you." "I couldn't have done it without you," Mira replied, her tone warm. "You helped me find the courage to speak my mind." James smiled. "You give me too much credit. I think you've always had that courage. You just needed the right moment." They fell into a comfortable silence, watching as representatives from countless worlds mingled, sharing stories and laughter. Mira turned to James, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think things will really change after this? That will keep building on what we've started?" James shrugged slightly, his smile steady. "Change doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with moments like these. With people like you willing to take that first step." Mira looked out at the crowd, her shimmering skin reflecting the soft glow of the overhead lights. "I want to believe that, and I want to keep being part of it, with you." "You will be," James said confidently. He reached out and Mira took his hand. They stood together, watching as the closing ceremony carried on. A scene of shared laughter, warm embraces, and the blending of countless cultures. Their journey had begun with an uncertain handshake and an awkward attempt at conversation. Now, they were part of something far larger than themselves. Their connection, though personal and unique, was a reflection of what the summit hoped to achieve. The realization that no matter how different, every species had something meaningful to contribute, and every bond made was a step closer to unity.